Okay, looks like we're streaming, so I will call the Legislative Action Committee of the Santa Clara County Cities Association to order at 6 p.m. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this special meeting. And Auden, can you please call roll?
Absolutely. Bybee?
Present.
Bybee present. Paul?
All here.
Paul present. Lara Munoz is absent. Flagger?
Here.
Flagger present. Mock? Mock is absent. Rennie?
Here.
Rennie is present. Montano? Montano is absent. Elahi? Elahi is absent. Constantine?
Present.
Constantine's present. Kame? Kame is absent. Who? Who is absent? Jones?
Present.
Jones is present. Watanabe?
Here.
Watanabe is present. Willia?
Present.
Willia is present. Cisneros?
Present.
Cisneros is present. And I heard we have two people who just joined. Could you please?
So it's Ellen Kame and Javed Elahi.
Okay, noted. Elahi and Kame are present. And so with 12 members present, we have a quorum.
Thanks, Auden. So we'll move on to the consent agenda, and we only have one item, which is the minutes from our last meeting on April 14th. If no one has questions or comments, we will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, Rennie.
Moved by Vice Mayor Jones, seconded by Mayor Rennie. Auden, let's quickly see if we have any public comment on the consent agenda. Seeing none, Auden, can you please call the roll?
All right. Bybee?
Aye.
Bybee, aye. Constantine?
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Watanabe?
I am going to abstain since I was absent from that meeting.
All right, Watanabe abstain. Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. Cisneros?
Aye.
Cisneros, aye. Rennie?
Aye.
Rennie, aye. Paul?
Yes.
Paul, aye. Elahi?
Aye.
Elahi, aye. Willia?
Aye.
Willia, aye. Kame?
Yes.
Kame, aye. And Flagger?
Yes.
Flagger, aye. With 10 ayes, the motion carries. Did I miss anyone? Don't believe I did. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Auden. Next, we will go to the substantive portion of our agenda. And I've received a couple of questions about how we select the bills that we will consider for our LAC meetings. And I will tell you, I get requests all the time from council members about whether or not we're considering a bill or they would like the committee to consider a bill. And so these four that are itemized for today rose to the top based on the requests we received from council members. We also have a list B, where time permitting, we will also cover those bills. We do have a board meeting at 7 p.m. and I know President Jones wants to get that meeting started on time. So we'll see where we are at 6:55. Speaking of President Jones, I do want to thank him for his leadership, both at the VTA and also part of our organization on working with Assemblymember Berman on, is it AB 2181, which had proposed restructuring the VTA. This is something we had heard a lot about from many of our cities. Some individual cities sent in letters. President Jones and I sent in a letter, and clearly all these efforts, in addition to Vice Mayor Jones's leadership, really made a difference. And I do think, Assemblymember Berman really working with the Vice Mayor says a lot lot about his intent to really improve the structure, but working with us as opposed to through the bill that many of us had concerns about. So thank you, Chappie, for all your work there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's why it's no longer on our agenda. It was the number one item for our agenda today. So we will start off with AB 2011, which is the WICS bill, Affordable Housing and High Jobs Act of 2022. And how I would like to do each of the bills for this meeting is actually start with public comment and then bring it back to the committee for discussion and possibly a motion. Unfortunately, the sample oppose and support letters that we wanted included in the packet didn't get added until I think 15 minutes before this meeting. But I'm still hoping everybody is familiar enough with these bills to allow for a good discussion and hopefully a recommended position for the board to vote on later on in the evening. So let's start with AB 2011. Auden, do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this bill? And as you're looking, I don't see any attendees on my list, but this bill would require all cities to ministerially approve certain affordable and mixed-use housing development in areas of a city where office, retail, or parking are principally allowed, even if it conflicts with the local jurisdiction's general plan.
I do not see any members of the public on the attendees list.
Great. Thanks, Auden. So then I will bring it back to the committee, and at a high level, I can summarize some of the advantages or the positions of the proponents and also in the opposition letters. I am open for a discussion or a motion on the floor to take a position. I will say one of the things that the Cities Association tried to do a couple of years ago was not always say no. Right? If we need to say no, then we should say no. But if there's a way for us to support bills or oppose bills, but make suggested amendments, we thought that was better for the Cities Association. So we would be viewed as a positive force. So we always welcome that kind of feedback on bills, even if we oppose them as they're currently drafted. I'm looking for hands, so let's see. President Jones.
Yes, so the city of San Jose already has taken a support if amended position, and we drafted a letter that was sent in on June 15th. So that's where San Jose is right now in terms of our position. So I will make the motion to support if amended and have a discussion.
Thanks, Vice Mayor Jones. And I'm sure we would, if you have that letter, it would be great to hear some of the proposed amendments to AB 2011. But again, it's ministerial approval to allow for construction of housing in non-residential zones, retail, office, parking. The opponents of the bill argue it takes away local jurisdictions' authority to develop its own local planning, zoning, and general plan. Where we, as cities, as local jurisdictions, we want housing located as we all go through the regional housing planning process currently. And those who are in favor of the bill, one of the benefits they highlight is the fact that by allowing housing in all these other zoned areas, it will limit the impact or the changes we need to make in the residential zoned areas. So it's one way of preserving, for example, single family homes, and then allowing for multifamily mixed use in these other districts. Rennie, Mayor Rennie.
I'm for trying to get more affordable housing built, and it is difficult to get for the finances to add up for affordable housing. So, on the one side, I'm thinking, maybe it's a good idea because it's so difficult to get affordable housing projects done. What I balance it against is particularly in Los Gatos, we're struggling with where our finances are going. We have a looming structural budget deficit. And those, though, this bill talks about taking up the areas that help balance the budget for a city. That's my first concern. We have a fiduciary duty to try to make sure our cities stay whole, and we make the money to do that in retail zones and somewhat in office zones. And if all of a sudden all of those are disappearing, you now end up with a city with an unbalanced budget. And the other thing, I'm definitely for affordable housing, but you also need to realize these are housing units that now have low property tax bills too, because they have low values, which means they actually cost the city more money than they bring in terms of the services and the wear and tear on streets and so forth. So again, I'm for affordable housing, but I'm also aware that this is sort of a double whammy. You're trying to take away the places where you can get ahead in your budget, and you're replacing it with something that is far behind in its paying for its fair share of what's needed in the city. So just some thoughts to add to that.
Thanks, Rob. I thought you were going to second the vice mayor's motion.
Sorry, I forgot we didn't have a second.
So we're still waiting on a second for Chappie's motion. Mayor Elahi.
Yeah, I guess I was also interested in seeing what his amendments were. So if you could explain a little bit, that would help.
Yeah, and fortunately, Zane Barnes is on in this Zoom meeting. Zane, do you have those proposed amendments handy?
And another issue I wanted to mention is a lot of these bills start off as saying we're going to do affordable housing, and they end up just being developers' housing. They're still building housing at market rates, and there's not enough affordable housing. And if they're going to say affordable housing, I think they should just stick with that. It says certain affordable housing and mixed use housing, so it ends up being all mixed use, and affordable just goes down the drain. So I think we need to get behind that. Now, from our Montessori's perspective, we don't have any commercial or retail, so it probably doesn't affect us, although I don't know if it will happen in the future or not. But obviously, from the small cities standpoint of view, I would like to push for some of these to exempt out small cities where it's applicable, because that really destroys their master plan, and it becomes a substantial thing where their own cities can't control that. So, but we'll talk about it more when we get to the other bills. This one doesn't affect us that much, so I would still like to see the amendments if possible. If not, whatever else you guys want to say about that, it's fine.
Yes. So as I mentioned, Zane Barnes from our intergovernmental relations team is here. Zane, can you provide any additional information on the amendments?
Sure. We went through and some of these things obviously don't fit into our general plan, and therefore we looked for potential carve-outs for certain areas named urban villages to be exempted out of this and put into the specific plan list. And then in addition, we propose amendments that will address the proximity to industrial and industrial parcels versus industrial zones. What I will note is that we have been in constant communication with Assemblymember Wicks's team, and there will be amendments that will be in print tomorrow.
Well, that's very helpful, Zane. And there's no way we're going to get our letter out before tomorrow. So we can obviously still submit a letter just in case what we would like to propose change doesn't get changed. But it'd be interesting to see those amendments. And some of the changes that San Jose has in its letter, would not apply to some of the smaller cities. But the letter that we would draft would obviously reflect all the cities in Santa Clara County, even if a request doesn't specifically affect all of us. So thanks, Zane.
Yeah, absolutely. We went through for San Jose really sort of big city issues associated with this. So yeah, no worries.
Thank you. Still don't have a second for the motion. I will go to Mayor Walia to see if she's going to second the motion or if she has a comment.
Thank you so much. I unfortunately won't be seconding the motion. I'll be very brief. Comments made by Mayor Rennie and Mayor Elahi. completely agree with those two. I see no benefit for Saratoga, only problems. We have minuscule commercial area, 1% of our land. And there are only problems for Saratoga. The amendments that, thank you, Zane, for providing those San Jose recommended amendments. They do not help us whatsoever. So I will not be supporting this, even with the amendments that I'm hearing of right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dina. Kathy, Councilmember Watanabe.
Yes, thank you, Nisa. I'm sorry, I'm not going to second the motion either. Our staff has reviewed the bills, and we've presented their position, and actually the city of Santa Clara strongly opposes this bill because, as Mayor Rennie mentioned earlier, the concern of lack of control, and I think Chair Jones mentioned it as well. For that reason, I'm sorry, Nisa, the city of Santa Clara will not be supporting it. Thank you.
We could entertain a substitute motion, even though we don't. Let's go to Councilmember Cisneros to see if she'll second the motion. Maybe Vice Mayor Jones will withdraw the motion. Let's see where this plays out. So Alyssa, go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be as helpful as you hoped I would be in this occasion. I did just want to, before we go to any vote on this, and the reason why I'm not going to make a motion is because my city has taken a firm opposition stance against this bill. However, Vice Mayor Cisneros, myself, very much supports this bill. So in the interest of that, I will be voting with my city, as I'm here representing them, and that is my duty here. But as such, I will not be making a motion or anything of that sort. But I just wanted to make that point clear. So sorry I couldn't be more helpful, but just letting everyone know where Sunnyvale and myself as a individual elected representative stands. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'll go to Darcy, and then maybe I will make a substitute motion. Darcy?
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm going to go ahead and also, if the motion is seconded, I'll be consistent with my city and oppose this motion. We actually came out against 2011 as well. But I do want to say that I don't think that is a endorsement against having conversations about what makes sense in our local region, and so being a border, like many of us with San Jose, as well as our border to the south in Saratoga, I think it just makes a lot of sense for us to, get together and have these conversations about, when we're, basically looking at these various economic opportunities from one perspective, what makes sense for each of our cities, right? I mean, as opposed to kind of, getting into these sort of border opportunisms. And, I liken it more to our conversation collectively about transit corridors. I think that, we're forced to really talk to each other because transit is intercalating, but very much so in the housing equation as well. So I don't oppose the idea in principle of opening up more opportunities, but I'm very much with the idea that the more, conversation we have that's, constructive and in good faith, that's really, what we're about as a system. And so, this, to kind of take away all kind of land use, not just authority, but input from a local jurisdiction, really not only doesn't make sense for our system, but also I think results in not as good of projects. And so thanks very much for entertaining that comment. And if there's a substitute motion, I would actually second a substitute motion to go ahead and oppose this, proposal. But I will not, bring forth that substitute motion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darcy. And I will just mention, I know our legislators, especially our local representatives, want to hear from us on these bills. So if possible, I would like to send a letter with our position and maybe some proposed amendments if we can get there this evening. Councilmember Bybee.
Excuse me, I just want to go on record on behalf of Campbell and our legislative subcommittee who have come out and opposed the AB 2011, and for the reasons basically that it's just continued overreach by the state into local control, and it's just one more layer for cities to have to incorporate into their regulations, and probably according to the subcommittee, their feeling was that it likely means more ordinances like SB 9 occurring.
Thanks, Councilmember Bybee. Mayor Constantine?
Thank you, Chair. I'll make a motion to not to approve AB 2011.
So we have a substitute motion, even though Vice Mayor Jones's motion wasn't complete. He never got a second.
Yeah, it died.
Yeah, so so point of order,
you
it's
just
not,
make a
it's not a
motion.
substitute motion.
So it's not, it's a new motion because
Correct.
Yeah, mine died a little late.
slowly.
Slow
So
down.
we have a new motion because Vice Mayor Jones's motion did not receive a second.
Okay.
We now have a motion from Mayor Constantine to oppose AB 2011. Is this with amendments or just a straight, just oppose AB 2011?
This is a straight oppose.
Okay, so we have a motion. Then I see Mayor Paul's hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask for a clarification as to the difference between not support and oppose, but in your restatement, Chair, it sounds like this was considered an opposed position, which I will go ahead and second. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion to oppose AB 2011, seconded by Mayor Paul. Any comments or discussions before we go to a vote? Seeing none, Auden, can we please go ahead? I see Tina raising her hand, and we will draft the letter. There is a sample letter from the Cal Cities League that also took an opposed position. And so most likely our letter will model that sample letter, but from the Cities Association's perspective.
I lost track. Did we take public comment before you take the vote?
We did.
Okay.
So I start with
Sorry.
public comment. So because we could have
Sorry.
discussion questions all at the same time.
Sorry.
Thanks, Tina. No problem. Auden, go ahead and call the roll, please.
All right, I will now call the roll. Fliger,
Abstain.
Fliger abstain, Kamei.
There we
Kamei,
go. Abstain.
Kamei abstain, Walia,
Sorry, I couldn't find my, I support the motion to oppose.
Walia, I, Elahi,
Aye.
Elahi, I, Constantine,
Aye.
Constantine, I, Paul,
Yes.
Paul, I, Bybee,
Aye.
Bybee, I, Cisneros,
Aye.
Cisneros, I, Rennie,
Aye.
Rennie, I, Jones,
Nay.
Jones, nay, and Watanabe.
Aye.
Watanabe, aye. With 8 ayes, 1 nay, and 2 abstentions, the motion carries.
Thanks, Auden. So we will get that letter out as soon as possible, and we'll also look to see what the amendments are tomorrow when the revised bill comes out. Thanks, Zane. Thanks, everybody. Next, we will go to AB 2097, which is the Friedman Bill, residential and commercial development parking requirements. Auden, let's start with public comment again.
There are no members of the public on the attendees list.
Thank you. So bringing it back to the committee and to summarize, as you know, AB 2097 would prevent local jurisdictions from imposing or enforcing minimum parking requirements on residential, commercial, or other developments that are within a half a mile of public transportation. Public transportation is still being defined, I understand. So that's what the bill proposes. The proponents of the bill argue that this would increase housing. I'll just go through the top 3 things that I know the proponents of the bill have put forward. 1, it would reduce the cost of housing development because, as we all know, parking is very expensive. 2, it would be better for the environment because this would encourage residents to use public transportation since they're within half a mile. And so it would reduce the number of vehicles on the road, which would obviously reduce the GHG emissions. And it would also encourage pedestrian-friendly communities. The organizations and individuals who are opposed to this bill argue that it goes against the density bonus law. This bill does not put any control over transit agencies. What if, for example, they were to shut down a particular transit route, but you built all this housing dependent on the transit route? And of course, the local control concern, which is, it's again taking away the local jurisdiction's authority to plan where to place housing and to ensure that for that particular neighborhood, community, city, it has sufficient parking. So those are some of the pros and cons identified with regards to AB 2097. So I look to comment, discussion, and motion on this bill. And the first hand I see is Rich, Mayor Constantine.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make a motion to oppose, and if it's seconded, I'll have discussion.
Okay, we have a motion by Rich, and I think Kathy was about to second it. Okay, thank you. So motion by Rich. So there's a motion on the floor. I see Councilmember Cisneros with her hand raised. Go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, if it was seconded, I do have comment.
Do you want to go? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you very much. So not opposed to having more dense construction or homes near transit, but as was mentioned, the definition of transit hasn't even been given yet. And in Morgan Hill, we have a one bus that goes every 15 minutes and a train that only comes 3 times in the morning and then 3 times in the evening. 3 times in the morning it goes north and 3 times in the evening it goes south. That is, to me, is not the definition of transit and not where somebody can actually count on that transit. So not having the definition is troublesome. And again, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Right now, people can't afford not to have their cars because of the different jobs that they have. And sometimes people use their cars for their jobs. So if we put housing without any parking, we're just creating a problem that was already exacerbated by we've seen in other areas where we've had higher density, where even some of the ratios that we have for parking aren't enough. So that's why we're opposed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. So everything that Mayor Constantine just said, but at the same time, the city is taking the position again that this is taking away local control. And don't hear me wrong. I mean, we're totally in support of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and protecting the environment, but this doesn't help us get there. And so that's why we're taking the position of opposition. So thank you.
Councilmember Cisneros.
Yeah, and real quick, they did let me be vice mayor this year. So thank
you for that correction. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That was exciting. So my city has not taken a position on this, so I guess you'll get my position. And that is to support it. So I will not be supporting the motion on the floor here. And there's a really, there's some rationale to that. And that is by not having parking minimums, you're not saying that there's not going to be parking, because then the market determines how much parking goes into any kind of new development. And obviously, I think that, we could all understand, like, a developer would like to make money. They would like it to be successful. And I don't think somebody would want to move somewhere and live somewhere where, wow, there's 0 parking for my car. That's not going to be a very appealing place to be. Oh, there's, anything like that. So it would allow the market to go ahead and determine that number of spots. And often, because of the cost of the number of spots, 2 to 3, depending on your local jurisdiction, makes it prohibitive, especially if you do have it near transit. Now, I just went and looked at that bill and it said transit as defined. And what typically happens with these bills where, you define transit, the general standard would be high quality transit, which would mean there's a certain frequency that is required. I'm not seeing in that bill. So, that would be an interesting thing to call the office and say, like, hey, could this be specifically to high quality transit where it runs a specific, with certain frequency. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it's twice an hour at bare minimum. So with a certain capacity per day. So that wouldn't apply to, say, some, dinky bus line that runs twice a day, So I don't think that's the intention of the bill, but just knowing that it's not saying no parking, it's just there can't be some prohibitively large amount of parking that could go ahead and sink the project. So knowing how the market works, I do support it. I think it would generate more housing and is a pretty low impact way to do that. And it's a conversation our city is going to be having and reorganizing our own parking requirements on the local levels. So having it within that half mile, I think is fine. So I'll be voting against the motion, and I hope that folks consider this food for thought, as the intention is not no parking, just no excessive requirements. Thanks.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. And we can include, depending on if the motion passes, we can include also some suggestions in the motion. Mayor Elahi.
Thank you. I think what's said before by Mayor Constantine is appropriate. I'd like to see if we can really start pushing some amendments generally for local cities, because a lot of these bills force small cities to do things that really don't have much impact. And we need to do carve-outs as if these bills are ever going to get approved. We did discuss this bill at council, and obviously we're opposing it because I think a monster has been released where the state can now tell everybody what to do. It started with ABAG, and then it went to SB9s, and now it's going to commercial, and it's going to impact every city on everything. So they might as well not call us city councils. They could start calling us a subdivision of a subsidiary of the state legislature. So I think that monster really needs to be put out. And this argument that there is the bus lines and the trains. I mean, you heard the statement that if you build it, they will come. This is like, if you don't build parking spaces, the trains and buses will start running. This is kind of the reverse of that. Have those trains and buses run, then come back and say, okay, there's reason to do this. We're not there yet. So to impose further controls over local jurisdictions doesn't make any sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Javed. Councilmember Bybee.
Again, I just want to go on record on behalf of Campbell's legislative subcommittee, who has come out with opposition to this and sent a letter. And basically, it echoes the comments of my colleagues, Constantine and Watanabe, in that you're somewhat creating a problem by not having parking, but in the real world, those cars are still going to be there. So where are they going to go? It somewhat defeats the purpose. And until you can address that issue, they're in opposition to it. So I'm speaking on behalf of that committee.
Thank you, Anne. Mayor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually fairly close between voting for the motion and abstaining from the motion. Cupertino has not taken a position on 2097. I have a strong inclination that my city and council would oppose if 2097 was in front of them. However, as a member of the board of directors of VTA until the end of this term this year, I think one of the things that we have here is an opportunity to look at the real incentive structures. The fact of the matter is, eliminating parking, near something that's essentially a 15-minute bus stop it just doesn't adhere to the realities of the situation, and it doesn't do so in a way that moves incentives towards a particular direction. Now, if you look at the actual transit patterns in our area, not just West Valley, but or North, Valley, but in the entirety of the county, we're undergoing an electric revolution. And so if people are focusing on parking, they should be focusing on mandates for more of these recharging stalls. Because if you're going, with respect to making sure that you're aligning incentive structures to kind of go with the flow of, what's healthy, what's salubrious, what's going to, help us out in the future, then I think you're looking at that. You're not necessarily putting a mandate and basically saying, let's make this functionally unworkable. And, essentially just, from a totalitarian perspective, absolutely miserable from the actual user perspective of probably the vast majority of people that would be, utilizing these facilities. I think, if you're going to write a letter with regard to this, please do talk about the fact that we also have an electrification of our transit, system, push, at the very least happening throughout society. And, one of the things that we can be doing, and we absolutely know, probably in 10 or 15 years, there's going to be, some very significant technological changes that will probably obviate a lot of this parking space. But we're not there right now. And nonetheless, even if we have that, there are still going to be needed like places to recharge. So I think we should be looking forward, 10, 15 years into the future, but also right now as to what makes sense. And this just doesn't make sense with regard to thinking about aligning incentive structures. This is basically, taking a hatchet to, try to do something that you really should be, performing with an X-Acto knife. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I'm going to Mayor Walia and then go back to Vice Mayor Cisneros.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support the motion as made by Mayor Constantine and Councilmember Watanabe. The arguments they have presented, as well as the arguments by Vice Mayor Bybee from Campbell, they all apply to Saratoga, and I don't need to add any more. I will support that motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Vice Mayor Cisneros.
Yeah, and I appreciate the discussion because it jogged my memory of another really good reason why I support this bill. And that's because when we're thinking about where we're going to build transit, usually I can't imagine that you'd want to build transit where there isn't or improve or build and invest in transit where there isn't increased existing demand. And in order to get increased existing demand, I would imagine you would need to put more people along that line to have the improvements or continued investment in that. So I see this as greatly supporting transit. And I know in Sunnyvale, I represent the downtown area, and that would all be within this half mile. So, when I'm thinking about supporting a bill like this, yeah, my voters are all going to be impacted by this decision, right? But a big part of the reason why a lot of folks want to live near there is because there is a lot of really high quality transit, like Caltrain right downtown, and buses, and the light rail's not too far away, and it actually becomes a more desirable place. And if they have a way to get around the bay. So, and the reason why we're able to continue to sustain that is largely because we do have the demand for people who move somewhere because they specifically want to be near transit. Having one car in a family isn't tremendously uncommon for many people who do live in multifamily housing, which was exactly the kind of housing that would be built. So we're not talking about folks who necessarily live in those single family homes and you have your traditional 2 or 3 cars or what have you. It's one car is pretty not uncommon. So when you look at the reality of what kind of housing is going to be built, who's going to live in those housing, who's going to live in that housing, and then why people move to specific areas. And my district, downtown Sunnyvale, is not suffering for any of this. Property values are great. People don't drive as much. And so it just reminded me, this conversation reminded me that that's another really good reason to support it. And I will continue to oppose the motion. But I did want to just, bring that counterpoint here to the conversation. So thank you for indulging me.
No, thanks, Vice Mayor. And I'll just add one point in Los Altos. So we also took a position to oppose this bill. So I will be opposing it on behalf of Los Altos. One of the main concerns was taking away the city council's authority, working with our planning commission to really require certain parking numbers depending on the development. And of course, there's the density bonus law where we are allowed to negotiate certain things, and this would take away that ability as well. I will say Los Altos is building its first ever 100% affordable housing development, and yay. And the developer has been very creative in it's a modular design. And so where they have the parking stalls right now, if 10 years down the road, we do not need that many parking spots, there's an relatively easy way to transition that to more housing. And so just sharing that with you. So when, developments come before you, if that is a possibility, I definitely encourage you to ask about that option. So with that and seeing no more hands, I will ask Auden. So we have the motion, it was seconded. Auden, can you please call the roll?
Yes. All right, I will now call the roll. Constantine?
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Jones?
Dane,
Jones, abstain. Wilia?
Aye.
Wilia, aye. Rennie?
Aye.
Rennie, aye. Paul?
Yes.
Paul, aye. Bybee?
Aye.
Bybee, aye. Ku?
Abstain.
Ku, abstain. Cisneros?
Nay.
Cisneros, nay. Elahi?
Aye.
Elahi, aye. Flagger?
Yes.
Flagger, aye. Kame?
Abstain.
Kame, abstain. And Watanabe?
Yes.
Watanabe, aye. With 8 ayes, 1 nay, and 3 abstentions, the motion carries.
Thank you, Auden. And moving along at 6:40, the next bill on our agenda is SB 897, Wachowski, which is the accessory dwelling unit bill. Auden, do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this bill?
I do not see any members of the public on the attendees list.
Thank you. So again, I will bring it back to the committee for discussion and a possible motion. This bill proposes to make several changes related to ADUs. The main one being it allows ADUs to be constructed up to a height of 25 feet. And the benefit there is the proponents of the bill believe this will encourage an increase in construction of ADUs, and it would obviously allow for more housing in or different jurisdictions. The opponents of the bill and one other advantage, in addition to increasing the supply from the proponents of the bill, is it would also allow for grant opportunities, more grant funding opportunities that's built into this bill. That's another component of this bill, to have grant opportunities. Those opposed to the bill, again, the argument is it takes away local jurisdictions' authority to determine what's the right fit for their community. Right now, I think the height is up to 16 feet. And so this would limit and reduce the flexibility local jurisdictions have. So with that, I will look to Mayor Elahi to start us off. Do you have a comment, open a discussion, or a motion?
Well, I could make a motion to oppose the bill, and again, reiterate, in any case, I think we need to start looking at the smaller cities. If there's going to be an amendment, it should say that any city that's less than a certain population, maybe it's 10,000, 20,000, or 30,000, because you're really forcing them to do things that really don't work very well for those small cities. They don't have lots. The real problem with this bill that I see is the 25-foot height. I mean, I'm already getting calls from people who were sleeping when the ADU laws went through, saying, hey, how come my neighbor is building a 16-foot ADU only 4 feet away from my fence? I mean, the setbacks are really critical. Those need to be further out. At 4 feet, or 25-foot house is looking at everybody's swimming pool or looking at the neighbor's thing. And that's just, it's a real invasion of privacy. So those are a couple of things that I have a real issue with. So I will move. I don't know if I'll have a second or not, but that would be my motion to oppose the bill.
So you're making a motion to oppose the bill, Mayor Elahi?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Let's see if Mayor Rennie is seconding the motion or has a comment.
I can second the motion just to get that over with. And my thoughts are, in Los Gatos, what we did is we said, well, we have some neighborhoods that are only single family neighborhoods. If you all of a sudden have usually ADUs are kind of small, and if you make them small and tall, it doesn't really fit if everything else around is single story. So what we did is in Los Gatos, we said you can have 2-story, which is going to be 25 feet, if you already have a house that's 2-story, kind of thing, right? So it wouldn't be everything's is single story, and then all of a sudden you have kind of this pencil tower sticking up. It sort of does not fit. And then, what Javed mentioned, I have the same challenges. I've been out campaigning a lot recently, and there's some friggin' mad people that their neighbors just say, "Hey, I could do it," because you can't say no, right? They can't negotiate over windows and the setback or anything, right? And this just makes what's already brewing to be a big problem even worse. And I maybe you need this rule in other cities, but in Los Gatos, we're building at least 25 ADUs a year. So we're not having a trouble building ADUs. And I think you said that was the purpose of this, was to stimulate more ADUs. And I can certainly say in Los Gatos, we don't need any more stimulation than we have. We're doing fine. We're our general plan, we're planning 25 a year based on what we've been seeing going on. So I think, again, this is, one size doesn't fit all kind of bill.
Thanks, Rob. Mayor Walia.
Thank you. Saratoga does not have a problem in building ADUs. We have been doing that. We have been using that as a tool for a very long time. Rob, thank you for the number. I unfortunately don't have Saratoga's number, but again, not a problem in building ADUs. The height, 16 feet with 4 feet setback, is a problem already. Increasing that to 25 feet will be a much bigger problem. Taking away local control in a small city, yet again, a very big problem, and making it ministerial, we don't like it. So I will definitely be supporting Javed's motion to oppose the bill.
Thank you, Tina. I'm going to throw this question out there, maybe something we could include in the letter. Any suggestions on how, if the main motivation behind this bill, or one of the main motivations, is to increase supply? And I will tell you, Rob just mentioned how many ADUs they're building in Los Gatos. Some people still don't think that's enough. And so I'm curious if anybody has thoughts on, how can we really incentivize more ADUs in communities where they're not being built as fast as other cities. Vice Mayor Cisneros?
That's a great question. I do have thoughts on that. So a really great way to incentivize ADU use is to, one, have, as a city, provide, and these are things that the city of Sunnyvale, we're working on our ADU toolkit and figuring out what kind of policies we want to do in order to do this. And these are all things we're in the process of considering and looking at. So I'll just share that since it was asked. Having the city actually provide some level of financing to people who want to and need to, especially you're talking about more moderate income homeowners who are interested in doing this to mitigate the high cost of borrowing to make this addition. Another way is to partner with a company that works with the city and has pre-approved ADUs. So every ADU that they would sell would be completely within, and I know the city of San Jose, Vice Mayor Jones would know about this, having a streamlined process with the company so that every ADU that they sold off the shelf was already in compliance, and you're able to, some people can go from applying for the ADU permit to moving furniture into it in their backyard within a month. That's wild. And that's very appealing to people. It's, you can really get it moving quickly. And then of course, having, information sessions available in many languages, because this is a particularly appealing option to many families who may not be originally from the US and are interested in expanding their home to make room for intergenerational living, which I think is a wonderful thing for communities and for families when it's feasible and possible. So making sure that you're doing these things to target the communities that can be most helped, which is moderately income homeowner and homeowners who are wanting to do that for family expansion and co-living. So, and then of course with setbacks and all of that, trying to be as reasonable as possible, but also keeping it, you know, in line with the neighborhood. So, I mean, for this, I'm abstaining. I don't think that the height limit is the reason for but I think all the things that I do say actually would make a meaningful difference. I don't know if this bill actually would. So I'd like to see other bills about ADUs you put there to make it easier, but not this one necessarily. But thank you.
No, thank you, Vice Mayor. And I do like the idea of having this ADU toolkit. Mayor Walia.
Just a quick additional comment, please. Thank you for entertaining that. You know, fundamentally, the gap here is we are having too many individual bills coming in without a comprehensive understanding of everything. So what crossed my mind is when we were going through RENA, with each one of these bills, problem with local control, we all get it. In RENA, we actually in our city can build more ADUs. The constant answer we had to give our residents was there is only a certain number of ADUs that'll count, thank you, towards the RENA numbers. So you're forcing us to do more ADUs against, I mean, literally taking an approach that is consistently contrary to what the city stands for and destroying the character. Not opposed fundamentally to affordable housing, but it's not realistic. So a comprehensive approach, and yes, we already have toolkits. We have been using those incentives, not exactly the same as Alyssa pointed out, but we have been using incentives for quite a while in Saratoga. So if we could have something else that would work, again, a customized approach, not one size fits all. So just wanted to share that thought with everyone here. Thank you so much. And that's not applicable only to this bill, but to other bills as well. Just fundamentally, that's what is lacking. That just crossed my mind. Thanks.
No, great point on the RENA process and the limit on the number of ADUs you can count toward that number. Okay, so I don't see any more hands. We do have a motion. So Auden, can we please call the roll on SB 897? The motion is to oppose the bill.
Yes, I'll now call the roll. Paul?
Yes.
Paul, aye. Bybee?
Aye.
Bybee, aye. Watanabe?
Yes.
Watanabe, aye. Rennie?
Aye.
Rennie, aye. Fliger?
Yes.
Fliger, aye. Constantine?
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Sneros?
Abstain.
Sneros, abstain. Walia?
Aye.
Walia, aye. Elahi?
Aye.
Elahi, aye. Ku?
Abstain.
Ku, abstain. Kame?
Abstain.
Kame, abstain. And Jones?
Abstain.
Jones, abstain. With 8 ayes and 4 abstentions, the motion carries.
Thanks, Auden. And the last bill we'll consider tonight is SB 1087. And Milpitas colleagues had requested this bill, and unfortunately, I don't see any of them in the meeting. And I think most of the cities are familiar with what's been happening with catalytic converters in our communities. And so I do want, again, to start with public comment, and then I will bring it back to the committee for discussion and a possible motion. Auden, do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this bill?
I do not see any hands raised.
Thanks, Auden. So let me bring it back, and I see Mayor Constantine.
Move approval, Chair.
So we have a motion on the floor that we support or oppose. To support the bill.
I'm sorry. I should have said move to support the bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we have a motion. Let me go to Mayor Paul to see if he has a second.
Yes, second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So motion on the floor. Now let me open it up to comment discussion. I see Mayor Walia.
I think we raised our hands simultaneously, so I was just going to second the motion and completely support it. We also have a challenge in Saratoga with this, so no need to say anymore.
Yes. We heard loud and clear from many cities, and Milpitas has been pushing us to take a position on this. Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the city of Santa Clara fully supports this bill as well. And I have to say, you know, as a mom, we have a Prius, and when our daughter was going off to school last year, I was so glad that I had a cover put over the catalytic converter, and because there had been incidents, and as she was away at college, and so I was just so glad that we have been able to do that, and I just hope that a lot more people will be encouraged to do that as well.
Great, thank you. Mayor Paul, you still have your hand raised. Is that from before, or do you have a comment?
No, thank you, Chair. That's artifactual. I'll lower it now.
Thank you. So seeing no more hands, Auden, let's go ahead and call the roll.
All right, I will now call the roll. Kame.
Yes.
Kame, aye. Rennie.
Aye.
Rennie, aye. Fliger.
Yes.
Fliger, aye. Bybee.
Aye.
Bybee, aye. Leah.
Aye.
Leah, aye. Ku.
Abstain.
Ku abstain. Jones.
Aye.
Jones, aye. Elahi.
Aye.
Elahi, aye. Paul.
Yes.
Paul, aye. Watanabe.
Aye.
Watanabe, aye. Cisneros.
Aye.
Cisneros, aye. And Constantine.
Aye.
Constantine, aye. With 11 ayes and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
Great, thank you, and thanks, everybody. We will move to item number 4, which is announcements and future agenda items. As you know, we do not have meetings in July, so our next meeting is in August. You know, enjoy the break, enjoy the summer, avoid the heat. If you have a request for a future agenda item, please feel free to send me an email. And with that, I will look to see if anybody else has any announcements. Mayor Elahi.
Yeah, I would really like to see our future agenda item considering what small cities means and what population should be considered, so that when legislatures are, you know, looking at coming up with the things that are important to the state of California, they understand that every city is not the same, and some bigger cities encourage the things that are done, but smaller cities can't do it. So if we can discuss, and obviously one city is 3,000, so we'll fit in any small city, but maybe it's a 15,000 population or 25,000 population. I'd like the cities association to consider that, so that, when an agenda item moves forward, we are all on the same page and we're all looking out for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Any other announcements or future agenda item requests? Seeing no hands, Auden, do we have any members of the public who would like to do a general comment?
I do not see any hands raised.
Great, and so with that, we will end our LAC meeting at 6:58 p.m. and our board meeting will start 7 p.m. sharp. Same link, so just stay on this meeting. Thank you.
Great job, Nisa. 2 minutes early. I'm
Thank you,
impressed.
Chair.
So it's 7 o'clock. I'll give everybody another minute to join us and then we'll get started. Well, it's a very quiet, well-behaved crowd tonight. I'm impressed.
It's the heat.
That's what I was gonna say, Larry. It's the heat. We're drained.
It is the heat. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
Would you like us to get rowdy, Chappie?
Well, I think we do need to thank Chappie Jones for the excellent Winchester Mystery House tour that he gave all of us. That was really great. Thank you so much. Very well done, very well presented. That was excellent. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad to see that we didn't lose anybody in the mystery house. Everybody made it out okay. So
it wasn't as spooky as I thought it would be.
Well, some of our
oh, it was spooky. It was spooky.
Yeah. I think
Sorry, I missed it.
we left a little bit of us back there.
So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So I want to call this board of directors special meeting for June 23rd to order. And Auden, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Ivy.
Present.
Ivy is present. Paul.
Here.
Paul present. Laura Munoz is absent. Flagger.
Here.
Flagger present. Mock is absent. Rennie.
I are here, yes.
Rennie is present. Montano is absent. Elahi.
Here.
Elahi present. Constantine.
Present.
Constantine present. Abakoga.
Here.
Abakoga present. Ku.
Here.
Ku present. Jones.
Present.
Jones present. Watanabe.
Here.
Watanabe present. Willia. Willia seems to be absent. Oh, no, she's present.
No, I'm here struggling with my mute button. I'm here. Thanks.
No problem. Willia is present. Klein.
Here.
And Klein is present with 12 members present. We have a quorum.
Fantastic. We're gonna go to public comments. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak? Yeah, I see one member of the public with their hand raised. Maha?
I'm sorry, please give me a second to get the timer up. All right, Maha, you will now be unmuted. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Okay.
You're now unmuted, Maha.
Okay, great. So thank you. Can everybody see me or?
No, it's just audio.
Oh, it's just audio. Okay. Okay, that's too bad. All right, so I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak with you today. I wanted to share an instance of Islamophobia that I experienced just before we shut down for the pandemic. And the incident that I'm about to share is just one of many I've experienced as a Muslim American woman in hijab, which is why I wanted you to see me. I often travel by air between San Jose and San Diego for POST, which is the State Commission on Police Training and Standards, to which I'm an advisor and trainer. On one such flight, I struck up a conversation with the woman sitting next to me, and the flight was about an hour long. And as we were landing, she turned to me and said, I want to be honest about something. When I first saw you boarding the plane, I called my daughter and told her that one of those people, meaning Muslims, was boarding the plane and she's carrying 2 bags. She continues and said that I'm afraid to fly with her. What do I do? I'm thinking about telling the pilot. To make a long story short, her daughter talked her down by reminding her that I had gone through TSA security. And her telling me this explained why the woman avoided eye contact while we were talking on the plane, and why she also intentionally avoided walking alongside me out of the plane. Any person of color who experiences racism recognize as being avoided when they see it. According to many studies, 70% of Muslim Americans experience some form of Islamophobia, and 1 out of 2 Muslim children is bullied or harassed at school on the basis of their religion. And this is why we all need anti-racism training, and particularly training on Islamophobia, what it is, what impact it has, and how to overcome it. This becomes even more important for you in positions of leadership and authority, because the safety and security of the residents of your community depend on it. So I am asking that all of you please hold training on Islamophobia in your city, starting with the city of San Jose, which is based on the article that Jabed Elahi was very kind to share with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maha. That's our only public speaker. So we're going to close public comments. And we're going to go to closed session. And Auden, I guess we have a new process for closed session.
Yes, so I've just sent a link in the chat to allow those who are attendees to stay in this meeting and not have to be kicked off. And we ask that all of the board members join onto the link that is sent in the chat.
So you want us to leave this one?
Yes, and you'll rejoin after closed session is over.
Okay, so we should put our, turn off our mics and video, please.
If you leave this one, you might lose the chat link. So anyway, copy it, I guess.
Auden, are you still there?
Yes.
So the chat link was for attendees, right? To go to a different, or was that for us?
That's for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only sent to the hosts and panelists. The attendees can see it.
Gotcha.
Auden, this is Shelly. So I just stay here in this room?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mayor Klein, do you need any assistance with joining the other meeting?
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat what you said?
Oh, do you need any assistance with joining?
Yeah, I just need to announce the closed session. Am I able to do that?
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. The title is Acting Executive Director, new. And now I will leave if I can and go to, okay, I can't, I'm not sure I can get back. Let's see. Okay, am I in the closed session?
No,
No.
you're not.
Okay, how do I, can you send me the link to get back now?
Yeah, I can send it again.
12 council members present, and there are 12 of us here.
Okay, and I think Shali will need to have this to join us as well, but probably just want to wait a few minutes.
Auden, will you let me know what I'm supposed to do?
Auden said that, yeah, I'll let you talk first, but
Oh,
Auden,
no, okay.
did I get another link? Should I receive another link, Auden?
Yes, did you see the link in the chat that was sent?
Oh, chat.
Sorry about
My
that.
fault. Got it.
Shelley, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, so I'm going to email you a link to the closed session and you shouldn't join it now, but Gary will let you know when you should join.
Okay. Are you gonna put it in the chat or did you say email?
I'm going to email it to you. Yes.
Got it. Okay. So I'll
Okay.
just wait for Gary then.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Shelley, are you still there?
Yes, I am still here.
You can go ahead and join the closed session meeting.
Thanks,
Oh. And did we lose anybody this time?
I think Javed we're waiting for, and Anne.
So we're missing Anne. And so we're just missing, what, one person? Well, we're gonna go ahead and get going, and hopefully Javed joins us in a minute. So we are now on, before we go to close to the consent agenda and open session, Gary, is there anything to report out?
Yes, so we had a closed session tonight and there's no reportable action.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So on to open session, the consent agenda. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on the consent agenda? Not seeing any. Can I get a motion to approve and accept the consent agenda?
So moved, Constantine.
Second, Rennie.
Thank you. Auden?
Right, I will now call the roll. Bybee?
Aye.
Bybee, aye. Abakoga?
Aye.
Abakoga, aye. Rennie?
Aye.
Rennie, aye. Klein?
Aye.
Klein, aye. Koo? Koo?
Yes.
Koo, aye. Lahi?
Aye.
Lahi, aye. Flagger?
Yes.
Flagger, aye. Watanabe?
Yes.
Watanabe, aye. Paul?
Yes.
Paul, aye. Constantine?
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Willia?
Aye.
Willia, aye. And Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. With 12 ayes, the motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item is item 3, consideration of new acting executive director. I will entertain a motion to approve the agreement and appointing Shally to the position of acting executive director.
So moved, Flagger.
Any public comment?
Are
Is
there
that after the motion? I'm sorry, after the motion.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and there are no members of the public present, so there's no public comment. All right, Auden?
Rennie?
Aye.
Rennie, aye. Willia?
Aye.
Willia, aye. Sorry. Constantine?
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Klein?
Aye.
Klein, I. Paul?
Yes.
Paul, I. Ku?
Yes.
Ku, I. Bybee?
Aye.
Bybee, I. Jones?
Aye.
Jones, I. Elahi?
Aye.
Elahi, I. Flagger?
Yes.
Flagger, I. Abukoga?
Aye.
Abukoga, I. And Watanabe?
Yes.
Watanabe, I with 12 ayes. The motion carries.
Congratulations. Charlie, you want to give a 15, 20-minute speech or
Can I just give you a 5-second thank you?
that works?
Thank you very much.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is item 4, Legislative Action Committee update. And Nisa.
Thank you, President Jones, and this will be very brief. We had a very good discussion at our Legislative Action Committee meeting, and we took positions on 4 different bills, and so we're recommending to the board to take these positions so we can get letters out to our representatives on AB 2011, AB 2097, SB 897 and SB 1087. The recommended positions are to oppose AB 2011, AB 2097, and SB 897, and to support SB 1087.
Thank you. Okay. Here a motion to accept the Legislative Action Committee's report and recommendation.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
And Mayor Elahi, you have a question? You have your hands raised?
No, I just made the motion.
Okay. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Chair. So Nisa, it was great, being a part of that process, but there were several other bills that were there for consideration if we had time. And I know these were very important bills and they took up a good amount of time for discussion. But will there be other opportunities for us to have a discussion as a group or just take a position with our respective cities?
So our next meeting, thanks, Kathy. Our next meeting is in August, and we'll see where these bills are in August. And so we will have that opportunity to take a position then. I know they want to hear from us, and I told them that we take a break in July. So for those additional bills, I will definitely have them on our agenda in August.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no members of the public present. So we are not going to have public comments. So let's vote.
Watanabe.
Aye.
Watanabe, I. Elahi.
Aye.
Elahi, I. Bybee.
Aye.
Bybee, I. Paul.
Yes.
Paul, I. Walia.
Aye.
Walia, I. Flagger.
Yes.
Flagger, I. Constantine.
Aye.
Constantine, I. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, I. Rennie.
Aye.
Rennie, I. Ku.
Aye.
Ku, I. Jones.
Aye.
Jones, I. And Abukoga.
Aye.
Abukoga, I with 12 ayes. The motion carries.
Thank you. Now we're on to item 5, Santa Clara County City Managers Association update. We have Zane Barnes with San Jose's Intergovernmental Relations Team.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I have a very brief update to provide. On June 8th, the Santa Clara County City Managers Association held a joint meeting with the City County Association of San Mateo County. During this session, the two organizations had a presentation on navigating the city manager and city council relationship from ICMA, and also address the issues of recruiting talent in high cost areas and some strategies to address recruitment. There won't be a meeting in July, but the next meeting will take place in August. And that concludes my report.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they solve that issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next, on to the executive director update. Joanne?
Very, very quickly, I'd just like to thank all of you for the last 6 months. I've really enjoyed being your acting executive director, and I thank you for your support in the last 6 months, and I look forward to working with Shali in a smooth transition.
Thank you, Joanne. Last item is joys and challenges, and as everyone probably has figured out by now, I only want to hear joy, but if you want to share your challenges, go right ahead, but I want to hear some joy. Anyway, who has anything to offer? No. Councilmember Flagger.
Thanks, President Josen. You've heard this a couple times already this evening, but I really just wanted to thank you, your staff, the team, Joanne, and everybody who helped to put together that excellent general annual membership event at the Winchester Mystery House. It was fun. You had an excellent speaker. It was great, in every way. And so really want to thank you for putting together such a thoughtful event. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Mayor Rennie?
And I just want to say we have a joy for you, Chappie. In San Jose, Los Gatos decided to not allow cannabis dispensaries, so we will not be stealing any of your tax revenue.
I appreciate that. Mayor Walea?
If that was a motion, just joking, from Nisa, I second that. It was just a great event, and I want to publicly thank President Jones and Acting Executive Director Joanne Benjamin. It really, to have us all safely outdoors in a manner where we could meet in person. We have been working together through challenging times, meeting virtually, which has worked great. It was just lovely, and all the efforts that went into that event are truly appreciated. And yes, it was a little spooky. That tour was a bit spooky. I agree, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Ellie?
Yeah, I just want to know who won the hammer throw.
Oh, that was Mayor Constantine. He has his amazing photo of his bullseye.
All right. Congrats. And thank you all. Thank you, Joanne, also for, and the staff for putting all that together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Seeing no more hands raised, this meeting is adjourned. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.